welcome everyone to our first Streamcast. And I'd like to welcome the other members of the Streamcast. We've got Zeb and Vetamur, myself, Sam, and we've got Vetamur.
Good day, good day.
That is Zeb.
And this is Vetamur.
Hey, what's good, fellas?
It's going well. Happy football season to everyone.
Finally.
Right?
Yeah.
So first off, welcome to anyone listening to our live stream. This is our first one, so please excuse any and all errors, but hopefully you'll learn something. That, or you just find another reason to just yell at us on Seahawks.net if you like.
Exactly.
All right, so we've got
Preseason.
Yeah, we got to get in preseason form. This is still our preseason. We have to warm up. We have to have a few sessions before we can say we're in regular season form.
Got to get our sea legs.
Yeah. So first off, just a quick intro. My name is Sam. I am a big Seahawks fan, and I have been a Seahawks fan for probably 20 plus years now, like maybe 17 super actively being a huge fan. And hopefully that will always be the case as long as they put a competitive team and we get a few more Super Bowls out of it.
How about you, Zeb?
Well, let me tell you this. My name is Zebulon Dak, and I'm in Portland, Oregon. And I have been a Seahawks fan since about 1987, I want to say. I was about 9 years old. I love football of all kinds. I like college football. I like high school football. I like the lingerie league. I don't care. Football's on. I'm watching it. But I'm Seahawks blue through and through. And that's the most important thing.
Excellent. I'm Ross. I'm over in Tokyo, 20 years now. I've been a fan since 1977 when I was 5 years old and on watching Jim Zorn run around with his left-headed charisma. And even before I even got the rules, to be honest, though, I think I was probably more of a Jim Zorn fan than a Seahawks fan in the early days, to the point that when David Craig took over for him, I wished bad things of David Craig. So David Craig, I apologize for that now. I've matured, and that's where we're at.
Mudbone.
Yeah, so did that guy have like just super small hands? Because he predated when I started watching Seahawks.
He had what we called Trump hands.
Okay. He always had to be surrounded by babies to make his hands look normal size.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I came to love David Craig as I got older and was more of a football fan rather than just, left-headed people of the world fan. Yeah, but early on, I hated that guy. I briefly considered being a Green Bay Packer fan when Jim Zorn went over there for his season.
Wow.
Good. Yeah.
Okay.
That's actually kind of hilarious that you would change teams because of one player on the team. That would be like if people in current day NFL like stop being a fan of, I don't know, like
when Peyton Manning went to the Broncos, like if everybody just was a Colts fan, just suddenly would move to Denver.
I knew some of them.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't move to Denver, but they definitely moved their allegiance to Denver. So
yeah,
that's a real thing.
It does happen. I think even with the Seahawks, you see like some new Seahawks fans are fans of certain players who were their favorite college players, right? They get drafted, they come in, and every year we get new members at .net who are followers from college football.
Totally. We have people that are Seahawks fans now solely because of Tavares Jackson.
That's true.
That's a little weird.
I salute those people.
Whatever brings you in. Brings you to the dark, away from the dark side into the good side.
There apparently is a dark and a light side of being an NFL fan.
If you're a Vikings fan in the modern times, man, that's dark times, isn't it?
But they won the NFC North. You got to give them something, though.
But if they're honest, they know they won it because like Jordy Nelson was hurt, like that, and then all of a sudden Green Bay just went off the rails. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rodgers had an off year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so long you can hang your hat on the Adrian Peterson thing.
Yeah, I mean, at one point his wheels fall off, right? Like those stem cells that he got, however it helped him come back from his ACL, and however many like supplements he took under the table, there is a shelf life to that before his legs fall off, just like every other running back.
You would think.
Has to be. It's only a matter of time.
Pettis type.
Yeah, but Jerome Bettis is like, I never thought he was that great of a running back. I think early in his career he was a little bit better, but like the last few years they basically just threw like a meat pile behind that offensive line, and he always got like 2 to 3 yards, and they did it enough times that he got 90 yards a game.
That's actually true.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so this is a Seahawks FanTable stream, so we are gonna get back on track and we're gonna talk about it. So myself, Ross, and Zeb have all prepared topics. So we all know what the topics are, and our first topic is this. Is this the year that Darrell Bevell coordinates, play calls his way to a head coaching position? So this is my question, but I'm going to allow Zeb or Ross to take the first stab at it. I actually did prepare some information for this, and I'm kind of going to go on both sides. But go ahead, guys.
Okay, well, I'll tell you this. Short answer, nope. But I actually do think that Bevell is underrated as a play caller. I know he gets a lot of hatred and vitriol from the fan base when things don't go well, but Pete's keeping him around for a reason, right? Like Pete Carroll could fire Darrell Bevell and hire just about anybody else he wants to call the plays, and he sticks with Darrell Bevell. So in my eyes and in my mind, he's the guy for the job. I don't know if he has what it takes to be a head coach. I don't really see that in him, but I could be wrong.
Cool. Ross?
Yeah, I agree. This is not the year, but I think I disagree only with the reasons. I don't know if the trend of like how head coaches are hired is going to continue. I think every year people look at like the last 4 playoff teams and everybody goes after their coordinators, but I'm not sure that's actually proven to work. Like, you look at Seattle coordinators every year get poached, they go off, but they don't have the success they had. I mean, I think people are starting to kind of follow different paradigms. I also think Darrell Bevell has some of the worst luck ever. I mean, he has coached up and he has helped out Russell Wilson's career, but he doesn't get the credit for it because of the type of person that Russell Wilson is. Russell Wilson's so charismatic and is such a golden boy and does everything right that you never think why is he successful in the NFL. You just kind of assume he would have been anywhere he went, but he did get that coaching. And of course, there's the play we all don't really want to talk about, but that happened, and it's infamous. And
That's it. The stream's done. We're going to just stop right now. The conversation can't continue after that.
But I mean, once that play happens, right? Like whoever brings him in as the head coach, that's the first question they're going to have to answer, rather than anything else Darrell Bevell has done. It's, well, is he really a good play caller or not because of one play? But we've talked about this in other cases, me, Sammy, and I, where I think Bevell's main strength maybe not be the play calling, where I think he's average, but his genius is in that he can modify an entire game plan on the fly. He can change an entire offense mid-season like he did Russell Wilson's rookie season, and he can put together an offense on the cheap. I mean, now people are starting to get paid, but for years, Seattle put no money into their offense, and Darrell Bevell has allowed them to do that by putting together a kind of offense that's okay with. All undrafted wide receivers, off the street fullbacks and tight ends, offensive linemen who used to play defense or stock shelves, and a quarterback who's too short. I mean, like, and that's going to get you a top 10 offense. Tell me another offensive coordinator who could do that, but who appreciates it? I don't think people appreciate it. I don't think he's going to get the job ever. And the other question is, does he want it?
That's actually, I think that's a really good question. Like, does he want to actually be fully in charge of that. And I think that's something that like maybe Gus Bradley and
Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn, they're learning right now. I mean, Dan Quinn started like awesome last year, 5 wins in a row, and then just fell apart. You know, the biggest win was obviously ruining Carolina's perfect year, which is awesome, but that's a division game. You know, division games are always kind of funny like that, and we know more than anyone that the Rams, for whatever reason, can play us really well, only because it's the divisional game.
Yeah,
Totally.
and that's always true. Division, you just know your division opponent's better.
Yeah. All right, so this is the research that I've done. So the Seahawks over the last 4 years have had a DVOA, which is a really fancy metric to say how good their offense is. In 2015, it was at 38%. 2014, 31.9. 2013, the Super Bowl year, they're at 40. And 2012, it was 30.7. So really, if you look at DVOA as a great indicator of success, obviously 2013 was a stellar year. 2012 was Russell Wilson's like breakout year, especially in the last like 8 games of the year. And in 2015, him and Doug Baldwin just like went off the rails. And I have to attribute almost all of that success to Darrell Bevell because he is the one that is game planning. He is the one that is helping build this offense with the spare change that John Snyder and Pete Carroll are giving to him, as Ross mentioned. But I also want to show you guys this. So this is the last few offensive coordinators, so strictly offensive coordinators that have been hired and their success. So in 2012, Joe Philbin was the Packers offensive coordinator. He got hired by the Dolphins. He went 24-28 and got fired. Bruce Arians in 2013 was the Indy offensive coordinator. You know, he was also like unofficially their head coach when their coach was battling through cancer. He won like coach of the year. Since he's been with Arizona, he's 34-14. In 2013, Doug Marrone was the Saints offensive coordinator. He got hired by the Bills. He went 15-17, got fired. Then you have Mark Trestman, who was an offensive coordinator but also a head coach with Miami, got hired by the Bears, went 13-19, got fired. 2013, Rob Chizednik, Carolina offensive coordinator, lasted 1 year with the Browns, 4-12. Then you've got Andy Reid and Chip Kelly, who are head coaches, so we'll disregard them. Then you've got Mike McCoy, who was the Denver offensive coordinator in 2013, got hired with the Chargers. He is 22-26 with them. Then you've got Bill O'Brien, who was at one point a New England offensive coordinator, went to Penn State. He's currently 18-14 with the Texans. You've got Jim Caldwell, who was a head coach in Indy, was the Baltimore OC. He is currently 18-14 with Detroit. Then you've got trash Ken Whisenhunt, who was mostly, successful as the Pittsburgh offensive coordinator. He went 3-20 with Tennessee, got fired, didn't even make it through a whole year. Then you've got Jay Gruden, Bengals offensive coordinator. He's 13-19. He won the division last year with Washington. Then you've got Gary Kubiak, who was the offensive coordinator in Baltimore. He won on having an awesome defense with Wade Phillips. They went 12-14, win the Super Bowl purely on their defense. Had nothing to do offensively. So that's the past. So the running theme through all of that is offensive coordinators do not win anything. Really, the most successful offensive coordinator of all of those people is Bruce Arians, and he's, I think, won like 2 playoff games in 3 years. Is that maybe one? Does that sound? That sounds about right.
Yeah.
And then the thing is, that's over the course of 4 years. That was 2012 to 2015. Those were just people that were offensive coordinators. In 2016, purely offensive coordinators, there were 5 people that were hired. 2 of them were head coaches formerly. So Hugh Jackson was the Bengals offensive coordinator. He has an 8-8 record. Adam Gase, who was a Chicago and Denver offensive coordinator. You've got Doug Peterson. He is Kansas City's offensive coordinator. Chip Kelly, former head coach. Dirk Kotter, he was the Tampa offensive coordinator, got hired in Tampa. Mike Mularkey was an assistant head coach and Jacksonville head coach and also Atlanta head coordinator. He's got an 18-39 record. And then you've got Ben McAdoo, who was the Giants offensive coordinator, took over Tom Coughlin. He is a new head coach. So the pattern is offensive coordinators do not do well as head coaches. In spite of all of that, if the Seahawks are healthy, if Russell Wilson, Thomas Rawls, Doug Baldwin, Jimmy Graham do what we think they're possible, what they did at the end of last year, I think he offensive coordinates and play calls his way to a head coaching position. There's no way with this much talent that we've seen on the offensive side that he does not get serious looks. What maybe hurts him is their success in the playoffs, and then it makes it so that he can't come out and then loses a position like he has in the past.
Yeah.
He's interviewed in the past. He's interviewed with the Bills and the Raiders and Washington.
And there was a rumor he had the BYU or one of the college jobs that were kind of
Right.
up for it for a little bit.
I don't think he wants to go back to college. I don't know if he interviews well, and I mean, with all the stats you just put out, Sam, I think it's becoming a bit more obvious. I mean, NFL is kind of a lazy league. You watch the Moneyball movie with Brad Pitt about it, Major League Baseball, and the sort of the old school conventional thinking. He must be he's lacking confidence because he has an ugly girlfriend kind of thing. The NFL is a lot of that same kind of thing. People follow trends that aren't really based on any logic or science, and they've done it for a long time, hiring coordinators. But I think finally, I think they're starting to wake up. Maybe not that the odds that the next Super Bowl head coach is the coordinator just for one of the top 4 playoff teams. The logic's not there. What makes a good coordinator isn't always what makes a best head coach. You have to have a whole program, in mind, and I just think the paradigm's falling apart. And I think the signs the NFL is starting to wake up to that, and they'll be more intelligent or more creative hiring.
Yeah, Zeb, last word on this topic.
I just want to say, this is a subject that's very close and personal to me. There's people out there who they believe that we've put together one of our more successful runs as an offensive team over the last 3 or 4 years. One of the longest, the biggest point differential streaks, points scored versus points allowed that we've ever had as a franchise. And there's people that think that has happened not because of Darrell Bevell, but despite Darrell Bevell.
Right.
And that's crazy talk. Like, that's our offensive coordinator. He has to be playing a role in the successes as well as the failures.
It's funny you say that too, because I mean, everybody talks about trusting Pete Carroll and trusting John Snyder, but they seem to the one exception is that they think those two become morons when it comes to the offensive coordinator.
Right.
It's kind of weird. I mean, I get it. I do get it. I mean, he can get too cute, right? In the play calling, and that play is always going to haunt everybody forever. But it's a really, really easy to. I think offensive coordinator in particular is a thankless job, and it's really, really easy to get on their case because play calling is just so obvious there. But I think there's just so much more into that people aren't really weighing fairly.
Absolutely.
That's why we're fanatics. That's why we're called fans. All right. So we've got topic number 2. Topic number 2 was provided by Zeb. And does the defense have what it takes to lead the league in scoring for the 5th straight year? If not, is it Kris Richard's fault? We're going to start with Ross.
Do they have what it takes? Yes. Will they necessarily be number 1? I don't know. A lot goes into that, right? I mean, there's a lot of good defense. Denver's a really, really good defense. Carolina, of course, Arizona. I think into the last couple of games last year, weren't we number 2 and number 3?
Yeah, I think Denver allowed like a late touchdown or something totally inconsequential to their game, and then that allowed the Seahawks to lower their score. We also did roll Arizona in that last game, which probably helped us too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really focused on being. I mean, it's really nice to hang your hat on having the number 1 scoring defense, and to say you did like 5 years in a row would be pretty amazing.
Totally unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of. I mean, it's not just about you; it's how good are the defenses and who do they get to play and things like that, right? So I don't know if they'd get it, and I definitely wouldn't blame Kris Richard if they don't. But if they dropped off, I mean, if they're suddenly not top 5, then you start to wonder, because I do see Kris Richard playing around quite a bit with things, and he has to. You can't just stand pat because people get used to it. But you have to make sure you play around, and you have to be, the next genius. You have to find the way to put new curls into the defense that other people don't catch up to. But I mostly believe in what he's doing. So That's where I'm at.
All right. So I think we're all in consensus. We all believe that this defense has what it takes to lead the league in scoring. The odds of that happening are pretty large, just due to the fact that things have to fall in play. You look at the lead, you look at the defense, you look at the corners, you look at the safeties, you look at the D line, you look at the linebackers, and say this is the same core. Now that core is 1 year older, more experienced, but can they keep up that same level? Are they all as hungry? So I would say yes, they do. I would agree that it probably is not likely to happen. If it doesn't happen, I actually will put a little bit of blame on Kris Richard because, kind of contrary to what Ross was saying, is you have to continue to adapt, but at the same point, if other teams are adapting and you're staying base and you're staying with your state cover one or cover three and you know zone on the outside, keep that extra guy in the box like Cam Chancellor, if Kris Richard is not able to adapt, and we saw this in the first two preseason games, some of it will be his fault, but also at one point or another, it's going to be, do you have the players to play a new style of defense, which every offense is going to try and get after you? We saw the tight end abuse the team last year. We saw the tight ends in that Vikings game really abuse our zones. Only until they went to a man coverage did they really make a huge impact. So it'll be really interesting to see. I like what Kris Richard has done last year. I think he can definitely improve, especially with this maybe more of a focus on man. But we'll definitely see. Zeb, what do you think?
Okay, so I will admit first off that I'm not an X's and O's type of guy. And also that I may be looking at the past with some rose-colored glasses a little bit, but I feel like since Dan Quinn left, the defense just isn't the same. I don't know. Without facts and numbers to back that up, I don't know that how much merit you can put into that. But just from watching football, watching the games, it just feels like the tackling isn't as good as it was. Guys aren't as in position as they were under Quinn. So the other thing is that as a Seahawks fan, I'm used to seeing flashes of greatness, flashes of good, but rarely do we get long-term greatness like we have with guys like Earl and Sherm, Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright. So I can't help but have just that feeling that one day it's going to fall apart, So
we're gonna AP and our wheels will fall off.
Right.
I mean, it's going to happen at some point, obviously, but you just kind of hope that they can be Patriot-like and they're drafting the right guys to replace them eventually.
Exactly.
The Patriots have been through kind of 2 or 3 cycles now of players, really, right? Other than eternal vampire Tom Brady, every other position has cycled through a couple times and they've still stayed on top.
Yeah, it just seems like no matter who they put on the field, they're successful.
And I mean, that's the program you have to put together. I mean,
but fuck the Patriots.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you know what? I mean, there's a quote on how much you can talk positive about the Patriots, but I mean, there's no denying they've put together a pretty solid program there.
Absolutely, they have.
And I'm just kind of hoping that the Seahawks are that, and I think there's a potential there. I mean,
I think you have to say they have 4 years of success, 4 years of, even with drafts where you look in hindsight and say they're not as good as you think they would be, they're still successful. They're still an 11-win team 4 years running. That is impressive.
I think this year is the first real test of that. I mean, 4 years is kind of like an average career for a lot of middle of the ground players, right? This is the first year there's going to be some turnover where it's the second generation of their players coming in. This is our first year. There's not going to be Marshawn Lynch at all this year. There's not going to be. I mean, right. So I think this year is going to be the first beginning of the test. Can they be a multi-generational, in football sense, football career sense, team, powerhouse?
Yeah,
We'll
but on the
see.
defensive side, there's so many mainstays. I mean, the only spots that really have turned over is the opposite corner from Richard Sherman, the defensive tackles inside, and the weak side linebacker with Bruce Irvin now gone. I mean, you have, you know, 7 mainstays on that defensive side
Right.
over a 4-year period going into the 5th year. That's pretty impressive. That's
Yep. And
keeping the
those guys
band
are
together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Defensively speaking, I don't know. I haven't looked at the history and the numbers, but I have to feel like winning the defensive scoring title 4 years in a row. Has anybody else ever done that?
Not in the modern era. I think the Bears did it 3 years in a row.
I think it was the Vikings. It might be
The
the
Vikings,
Might be
that's
the,
right.
I think it was the Vikings that done it 3 years
But
before
they
the
did,
Super Bowl.
but they did that before people started passing the ball.
Yeah, and then before free agency and before, before somebody said put a helmet on.
Exactly. All right.
You know, I want playoffs and I want Super Bowl. Obviously, those are the things that are important. But that defensive scoring title to me, for whatever reason, maybe it's just something.
When it became 4 in a row, it became like a big thing, didn't it?
Yeah. It matters to me. It's important. I'd love to get that. I'd love to get that 5th one, and I would love to see the team battle under Kris Richard and
I think we've got a shot. I mean, we get to play the Jets this year. We get to play the Bills this year. We get to play teams we don't often get to play that are pretty weak.
Yeah.
True.
It's not just about the defenses. It's who you're going to play as well.
Final thoughts on the defense.
I think they have what it takes to be as good as they've been over the last few years. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the other cornerback opposite Sherm and the weak side linebacker, like you said. And hopefully we can stay healthy and obviously the talent's there, the tenacity's there. We got, as long as we have Earl, I think we have our general. I'm looking forward to seeing Cam lay some fools out.
Yeah.
Ross, final thoughts on the defense?
I mean, I do agree with what Zeb said earlier. That especially at the beginning of last year, things didn't. I mean, the defense was good, but it didn't feel like quite the same. I thought by the end of the year, things started to come around a bit. I think there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. We don't know exactly how much of the Cam holdout at the beginning of the year affected them, and how much putting Kerry Williams plugged him in affected them. Not just like
Kerry Williams.
So here there was the Kerry Williams debacle. But this year it feels like I think they even brought Brandon Browner back essentially for attitude even.
Right.
So I'm optimistic.
Yeah, me too. So my final thoughts on the defense: the Seahawks have made, for me, defense more fun to watch than the offense in some regard. Especially at a home game, especially being in the stadium, having that crowd cheering, screaming, stamping your feet, making noise. It has made a third down stop just unbelievable. And that's what I want this defense to continue. If that means they lead the league in scoring for the 5th straight year defensively, I'm all for it. And I hope that, and I think that they can do it. All right.
Agree. Concur.
All right. So let's go to topic number 3. So this is Ross's topic. So I'll start, Zeb, and then we'll go to Ross. But topic number 3, what will the running game look like in 2016? Rawls versus CMike. How often will Wilson get the green light to go? So I'll start, and the first thing I want to say is Christine Michael has made me a believer. I named my fantasy team Lefty Balls No Hold after Christian Michael because he never held the ball in his left hand. In that game against Minnesota, he put the ball in his left hand, had a great run. Brock Heard on the broadcast mentioned it. It was insane. And he's made me a believer. Now, it's preseason. No one's playing like hardcore. No one's playing their starters. But that one cut and go has gotten me excited about him. If we get a Thomas Rawls that is 75, 80% of what he was last year, he'll be serviceable. But then it becomes where Christian Michael is that lightning, he's that home run potential that Marshawn always made us super excited about. So I am excited about the running game. It's going to be more of a platoon for sure because we don't know what we're going to get in Rawls. Pete Carroll has already stated today that he wants and thinks Rawls is going to be back for game one. With limited training camp, I don't know how likely that is unless he gets activated like on Friday. But that's what I think the running game is going to look like. It's going to be a heavy dose of Kristen Michael. The running game has actually looked really solid in the preseason for whatever it's worth. And I think that Russell Wilson is going to tear it up, that he's not going to have to run. I know he didn't look great offensively, taking a couple of sacks by not, running outside or throwing the ball away. But I think this is a year where he becomes that mental general that Peyton Manning, that Tom Brady, that Drew Brees, and Aaron Rodgers have been. His trajectory towards that will make it that he will always be given the green light, but he's always going to be able to find a guy. And I'm really, really excited for what he can do on the offensive side with a bunch of healthy guys.
Yeah.
Zeb, what do you think?
Well, I agree with you for the most part. I think when it comes to Russell taking off, I think he always has the green light. I think, to me, it seems like if there's something there, and you don't see the pass, you don't see the throw, and you see a lane, go for it. So that, I think, he obviously wants to throw. That's like his priority is to throw the ball. He's not looking to run every time, and I like that about him, and I think most people do too. But I think he has the green light to go. I'm really, really excited to see Rawls come back healthy. I hope that's the case. I loved watching him play last year. It's the only thing that softened the decline of Marshawn Lynch. It made that acceptable, and now Marshawn being gone, I need Rawls to be there to give us that. Really excited about the way Kristen Michael looks. I need to see, obviously, it in the real season or in the regular season, and see him do it consistently over a longer period of time. But he looks great so far in the first two games that we've seen. I'm a little disappointed in what we've seen from Alex Collins. There's one poster on .net in particular who seems to have followed Collins to the Seahawks, and he had my hopes really high about Collins being the real deal. And we haven't really seen that yet. So I hope to at some point. But other than that, really excited to see CJ Precise tomorrow, his first action as a Seahawk.
Is that for sure? He's going to play?
From everything I've read, yeah, he should be getting his first action tomorrow. We'll see. I mean, it's preseason. Anything could happen. But hopefully. And then also, just as a side, watching Troy Maine Pope run has been pretty exciting. I don't know if he really has a shot to make the squad, but other than the fact that he stole Michael Robinson's number, it was fun watching him run around.
Yeah, that was weird seeing 26 on the field.
So yeah, I like our youth. I like the talent. Not having Marshawn is pretty not cool. Like, it's going to take me a little while to get over that, I think. But other than that, I like what we got, and I like what I've seen out of the guys for the most part thus far this preseason.
All right, Ross.
Okay. I'm really impressed with Christian Michael. Let me say that first, because then after that I'm gonna not be so awesome about him. I mean, he's like a rare redemption star. I've never seen somebody not get it for multiple years and then actually kind of the light comes on. I've seen it come after like a season or a half season, but I really don't think I've seen anybody actually have the light come on. Like if you're a 25-year-old man and you don't get it yet, the odds you're gonna get it are not very high. But he gets it, and I don't think there's any doubt. Watching him even the end of last year, watching just the first couple of days of training camp this year, there's a different guy. There was a day of training camp last year where he actually left practice, went into the locker room, and like took out a hat to show people. I mean, he was not there mentally, but now he is. That said, I think he's a good running back. I think Rawls is like special. This is sacrilege, but I think he's like Lynch special. Different kind of guy, different player, but I think he has the potential to be Lynch special. If Rawls is out there, I think things are that much better. I won't panic if it's Christian Michael for the first couple of games even, but I think Rawls is special. As far as Russell Wilson, I'm a little bit worried that last year, yes, he always has the green light to go perhaps, but they didn't want him to even more so. And I think part of the success of the running game depends on that threat being there. And I thought they flirted with him rushing too little at the beginning of last year to the point that it actually affected the running game in a negative way. That threat has to be there to make it 11 on 11, not 10 on 11. And so I really, really am nervous, but hopeful that this year they kind of have the eye of the tiger back and say, you know what, take it as often as you need to keep things open. Not because you can't pass, but because that opens up the lanes for Rawls or CMike or whoever else is back there. Bit nervous that last year, really, like Wilson just didn't want to run it very much early on in the year.
Yeah.
As far as Collins, Pope, and so on go, I read this week, and I'm not a big college football follower. I was reading just this week about Alex Collins' alma mater's running backs in the NFL, just not really doing that well. But maybe they're system running backs, and I think that may be showing up a bit. Last week he had an awful game. He missed blitz pickup. He missed catching balls. It was bad, and I think he may have opened the door for Pope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Alex Collins, obviously, you guys kind of touched on it, but he's the big question mark. I mean, CJ Process to even larger degree is a bigger question mark because no one's actually seen him. Like he had a hamstring in like Ross and I. We went to training camp on Saturday, and he showed up for like one play, pulled a hammy, and no one's seen him since. And that was 24 plus days ago when CJ Process was on the field. So I mean, he's on the field tomorrow. We're going to see him in the game against Dallas tomorrow. It'll be great. But it's really interesting coming from where you had for the previous 5 years, Marshawn Lynch just there. And you knew what he was always going to be able to do. You knew there was like a big touchdown in him. And we don't have that anymore. I mean, Thomas Rawls, I think, did a really great job. That game in Cincinnati last year where he took one to the house for like 60-plus yards on like a great cutback, juke, and like a little baby stiff arm. Like, that is what you want to see. Like, if you can get a running back with that talent, it's exciting, it's great. But this is going to be such a weird transition year for fans, I think, because we want people to replicate what we did. We want people to replicate that running game, and Seattle has been historically a great running game with Russell Wilson. But it's a lot of unknowns, and it's kind of like, let's hope it works out.
Right.
Yep.
I think that there is no other Marshawn Lynch. There is no one guy that could ever be and do what Marshawn Lynch was and did. So if Rawls can become even close, or if a group of guys together can get close to what Marshawn gave to us, I'll be happy.
Agreed. Ross, final thoughts?
One just quick thing on Procise. I think talking about doors opening and closing, I think his injury kind of opened the door to try out Alex Collins as a third down back, which is what they tried to do last week.
And he horrible.
I mean, it was horrible. I mean, like George Farmer, who's like a converted cornerback, he played better. He outplayed him. He's not making the team.
Right.
So I think injuries really, really have put both those two in kind of a precarious position. Because, I mean, we know Pete Carroll and John Schneider, they don't really care where you were drafted. What can you do for us today is how they just choose their roster, right?
Yeah.
I think those two have really seriously hurt themselves.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing. You'd never want to see someone lose a job to injury, but to think the Seahawks have continually shown, like, if there's an opportunity, if there's an opening, take it and run with it. That's how Russell Wilson became our quarterback.
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, so on to topic number 4. So this is my topic. I'll let you guys start. You guys can choose who goes first. But what is the point of preseason in the current NFL?
I mean, obviously, the main point of preseason, the two main things that I see is one is just to kind of get people up to up to game speed, shake off some of the off-season rust. And then, but maybe more importantly than that is to see the young guys and see who's going to make the team, because the opportunities are there, especially if you're a Seahawk, to be nobody and make a squad and actually be a difference maker.
Yeah, Ross.
Yeah. I'm actually unlike almost every other person I know about these days. I don't like the preseason, but I think it's really, really, really important. Especially with the new CBA. There's no more 2-a-days in training camp. There's almost no real hitting in training camp. There's almost no real hitting in practice. It's really, really hard to evaluate some positions out of games, without the preseason games. How would you know about the offensive line based on today's training camps? There's not much there to go on. They're practicing in shells, they're practicing in helmets only, in t-shirts. You don't know. There's a lot of positions I don't think you can evaluate now, except in the preseason games. I think it's a lot more important than it used to be, actually. If they want to cut down to 3, like people talk about, they need to change the CBA and let people practice hard again.
Yeah. All right. So my thoughts on the current preseason now, it is only benefiting the Seahawks. Because I look at other teams, I look at other teams, the way that they play the Seahawks, and it's trying to go up to the biggest dog and trying to establish dominance. And you see the Seahawks, they play a purely vanilla offense, they play a purely vanilla defense, and teams are still trying to come at them. You look at the way that Minnesota was blitzing Tavon Boykins in that game last week, and you basically say to all the other offensive coordinators that have to play the Vikings this year, you're like, thank you, Mike Zimmer, for letting me see what your blitz package looks like. That's one less thing that I have to worry about come regular season. So the current preseason, it obviously is not the best thing, but what it does for Seahawks is it basically is just an open audition. It allows their players to get the view, to, be on the lookout and say, hey, I made it to the final cuts of a Seahawk camp. You need to sign me. Because we've seen historically, every time the Seahawks cut a guy, they immediately get snatched up. They immediately get picked up. Now, whether or not they can make it on that team, because the Seahawks are very particular about who they get, it provides them with a really, really unique opportunity. So, the Seahawks, they use their preseason in a different way. It's to their benefit. But the rest of the NFL, I'm not really sure what they're doing. So we'll see.
I don't get a chance to watch a lot of preseason football, just because my work schedule, and the preseason, the schedule's all weird and teams are playing all sorts of weird.
The game's at 7:00 tomorrow.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So I don't get to see a lot. I don't know. I have to imagine that the other teams are doing similar things to us as far as trying out guys, rookies, undrafted free agents, pickups, guys that aren't guaranteed a roster spot, just to see if somebody can stick. Obviously, under Pete Carroll with the Seahawks, it's been a much bigger thing than it's ever been for us. So, I guess my one thing I would say about preseason is that if they cut it to 3 games instead of 4, it wouldn't break my heart. But I think you need at least that 3. I think that, as they've talked about, taking away 2, that's not enough. You got to have at least 3.
Or they have to open up so they can actually have contact and, like Ross said, like allow them to actually play football and see what they have.
Right, but even then, you're not going up against another team. You know what I mean? Like it's you can go hard in practice, but it's never going to be the same as an actual.
I don't know. Michael Bennett's picking fights with offensive linemen left and right.
Right, but I mean, it's also the matter of in training camp, you're going against the same guy literally day after day after day, which is good if you're going up against him like a Richard Sherman or Michael Bennett, because you're learning to play against the best. But at the same time, you don't want players tailoring their new techniques, specifically to beat Michael Bennett when they're going to go against a different defensive tackle, defensive end the week after. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the other. I mean, if we want to take 1 second to be cynical, the other good point about the preseason is it's a huge cash grab, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's probably the worst.
It's bullshit.
I mean, like, if I'm gonna see preseason football, I want preseason prices on my beer. I want preseason prices on my.
You have the concession
Like,
stands in preseason mode where there's like
right.
10 extra guys serving beer, and 3 of them are going to get cut come regular season.
And like, maybe like the head on the beer is too big, but I'll deal with it because it's only $5. So,
Yeah.
Maybe preseason should be just BYOB. Bring your own beer for preseason.
that would be cool. How cool would that be?
That would be quite a mess.
Is this the first season in a while? But I thought I read this that they're actually charging less for tickets, or am I?
Yeah.
Last year,
it's weird. So the way that they do it is, as a season ticket holder, you still pay the same price per each ticket, but they say that there's different tiers. So there's 1, 2, and 3. So like Carolina, Arizona, those are like tier 1, which means they're the most expensive. But if you buy season tickets, you're buying at one price, so it's still going to average out. It's only if you can get single game tickets do you see those price tiered out, and most of the time you can't get tickets because they have a 99% renewal rate.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Final thoughts on preseason?
Let it end soon.
Hey, there's a game tomorrow. I'm excited for that. That's my final thought.
I mean, yeah.
I'm ready for tomorrow's game for sure. God save the preseason.
Yeah, it's 2 quarters and like a series of the starters, and then I'll probably take off.
If every game the whole season was at 7 o'clock Seattle time, I would love it. That means like it's 11 o'clock in the morning my time. I don't have to wake up at 3 or 4 or 5, 6 o'clock in the morning to watch it.
I would not be mad about 7 p.m. games all the time for sure. That would be awesome.
It would be awesome.
Yeah, it's I know you guys aren't up in Seattle, but that late afternoon sun in August is super hot in Seattle. I know that's not what people think when they think of Seattle weather, but let me tell you, where I get to sit, I get that afternoon sun. It's going to be blaring. It's going to be hot. I can't wait for the sun to get beyond the awning, so that way I won't be dying. But yeah. All right, so topic number 5. This is Zeb's topic, so he'll go last. Topic 5, favorite.
So do good. Kick ass at this topic.
Okay. Topic number 5. Favorite past Seahawk not named Largent, Walter, Easley, or Cortez. So this is super easy. I already know what Ross's is, but I'm going to go first. I'm going to take this because my favorite Seahawk of all time is by far Shaun Alexander. I've always loved him. I loved his game. I know a lot of people don't. He was just smooth, like silk, like water, and he scored touchdowns like nobody's business. And I know people don't like him because they think he only tried hard in the red zone. But if you're going to have a guy try hard, it's got to be in the red zone. You got to score touchdowns. I mean, I hate bringing it up, but Shaun Alexander scores from the 3-yard line, from the 1-yard line, from the 5-yard line in Super Bowl 49. We saw with Marshawn Lynch, as awesome and as great as he is, he can get stuffed. Now, if you give him, a carry from like the 20 on the opposing field, he'll take it to the house, but he'll run into like 500 guys on the way doing it. Shaun Alexander, my favorite guy, he always scored.
Yeah.
Yeah. You haven't seen somebody score like that in a long time.
No, I mean, I know that LaDainian Tomlinson, passed his touchdown record like a year after, which I think makes it diminished of what he did. But you've never seen anyone close to that touchdown production. I really think Marshawn Lynch is the most consistent touchdown scorer from the running back position since that era of all these guys that scored like consistently, like 15, 20 to touchdowns a game or a year.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Ross, I already know who you're going to pick, but let the fans hear what it is.
It's Jim Zorn. Is there anybody else? I mean, like, yeah, as a kid, I was a fanatic. First of all, I was only like the left-handed person I knew, so that's what kind of got me going. And then his scrambling ability, like it sounds stupid to say, but he played not like talking on TV. His playing style was so charismatic. As a kid, it was entrancing. And I don't know how good he really was or wasn't. You could argue it forever. If he'd ever played for a good team, would he have been better? I don't know. But he himself was magnetic, and for a long time, like I patterned my life after him. Like, had his football card that told me he learned to play the violin, so I immediately took up violin at school. And I mean, I was a fanatic for him for a long, long time. And then I kind of, when he became a quarterback coach for Seattle again, I was really, really into it. And then I don't think there was anybody outraged more than I was how he was treating DC when he finally became a head coach, sort of.
No, that was ridiculous. That was the worst story, and Dan Snyder's a terrible owner.
That was horseshit.
It was awful. I mean, and I just felt really bad for him because that was the one chance he was going to get. He's was getting up there in age, and then the year after he became a quarterbacks coach, and they fired him from the Ravens essentially because the offensive staff were getting too loyal to him and not to their head coach. I mean, like, holy crap. Yeah. Anyway, that's my all time.
And for those of you that don't know the Dan Snyder, Jim Zorn, do you wanna rehash that real quick?
Okay, I will. So Dan Snyder hires Jim Zorn to be their offensive coordinator, and then calls him over to his house for a meeting one night. After he can't find a head coach, everybody turns him down. Jim Zorn shows up at Dan Snyder's house, and Dan Snyder tells him, "Oh, actually, this is meant to be an interview for the head coaching position." So Jim Zorn literally goes home, changes into a suit, comes back. Then they do the interview. He decides to hire him. And then I think it was midway through the first season, it might have been the second season, where he took away the play calling away from him. Although this guy was meant to be your offensive coordinator. And then Heather had another guy up in the booth basically supervising the play calling. And so he never really got to do what he wanted to do. Never ran the offense he wanted to run. Never had any say over any of the personnel. Just got jobbed.
Yeah, he totally did.
I'm bitter.
Dan Schneider's an idiot.
Positive. Zeb, give us an answer. Let's be positive again.
Well, thank God we have John Schneider instead of Dan Snyder, right?
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
I have a couple of honorable mentions that I need to say. First off, I want to say that Melvin Jenkins, if you guys remember, he was a cornerback number 24 back in the 80s. He was the first superstar player that I, for whatever reason, I just attached to him, and he became one of my favorite players. He wasn't around for very long, but he made me want to learn and understand and respect the cornerback position before prime time, before Dion came around. So I just wanted to give that quick shout out to Melvin Jenkins. Matt Hasselbeck, when he left, was my favorite. Besides Largent, was my favorite Seahawk of all time, or maybe even on top of Largent. I don't know. But after the years we got out of Marshawn Lynch, I cannot help but feel like he's my favorite Seahawk of all time. Just not even including the Hall of Famers. So Marshawn's my guy. Tearing up over here because I'm gonna miss him this season.
I'm wearing his jersey tomorrow.
Yeah, good. Well, yeah. He deserves that. We should all wear his jersey tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm like sacrilegious. I love what Marshawn Lynch did for the team. Never really liked his antics, and by the time he was on his way out last year, I kind of thought it was time for him to be on. So everybody start hating on me now, please.
Well, I guess our quick relationship starts and ends tonight.
I'm all for him. Like, people say he's a borderline Hall of Fame. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I support his career 100%. But I mean, when you're getting that much money and you can't do an interview, you can't be an adult. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
No, I totally feel you. I can understand people that weren't on board with the way he acted off the field. Or even on the field sometimes.
3/4 of the time, even his antics were okay with me. But it just got to the point, towards the end, it's diminishing returns here, man. You're not even on the field this year, and you're still doing this stuff.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm one of the people in the camp that thought that the way he was off the field and outside of playing football was part of what made him above other people to me. I love the personality. I love the way he was just true to himself and didn't change. He's who he was. He grew up in Oakland and he brought Oakland with him everywhere he went. And I respect his decisions and his actions.
I really was cool with that. But again, I like that example. Even he's setting you can actually be yourself and be here. But I think a little bit of maturity. I thought at times even it became out of that, or even when he announced his retirement, it was kind of let's make that a little bit more dramatic than it needs to be, kind of thing.
Walter Jones did the same thing. He retired in a Super Bowl game. So
right, no, it wasn't just that though. Like Lynch, like just he wouldn't do the paperwork, like
right.
refused to do the paperwork because I don't know, like putting your just like following some basic rules is against is giving into the man. I don't think so, man. The man has made you a millionaire and let you do all these great things that he can now do. He spent the offseason doing amazing things in Africa. So you know what? So put your signature on a piece of paper. Right. It's not that hard. We all have to do things a little bit that we don't like to do. That's just part of being an adult in society. Anyway, totally. I don't want to hate on Marshall Lynch too much. Again, I love him. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame because name another player has so many like individual runs that have names even.
Yeah.
Right.
The fact that you can have a Beastquake 1 and a Beastquake 2.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't think you could find any other stadium, any other team that has one guy be so iconic to the start of their success and also them reaching the pinnacle.
Yeah,
for sure.
I just like when we made the trade and all the Bills fans were like, "Good luck with that piece of work."
I was so excited when we made that trade because I thought his style was so great. I was so tired of the crap running backs we had after Alexander. I mean, we had Edger and James. We had
Julius Jones.
Yeah,
Julius Jones.
Julius Jones was awful, and I still remember that one game where he was with Dallas, and they ran like 100 draw plays, and he had like 200 yards. That was in the bad years, but yeah, I'm excited about Thomas Rawls. Last thing here, based upon Zeb's topic, Kenny Easley is in the senior committee's vote for the Hall of Fame. Does he make it in real quick?
I think the odds say yes, right? Like something like 79-80% of the people that get to where he's at end up in. And I think now that the Seahawks have kind of come into their own as a franchise and they're nationally recognized as being a good team and a good franchise, I think that's only going to help. So I say yes. I think Kenny Easley is finally going to get in.
I agree. I think he gets in. I think he should get in. And I think it'll help turn the Hall of Fame back towards what it should be. Instead of like sort of like a baseball-esque numbers pure game, it should be like your impact on the game. I mean, it'd be really awful if he never made it in because he gave so much to the game that he had to take painkillers, which destroyed his body, so he didn't play long enough to get in the Hall of Fame. That's crazy.
Yeah, taking so many painkillers that it basically destroyed his kidneys, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so that shortens your career, so you can't be in the Hall of Fame because you are such a Hall of Fame player. You were doing that. I mean, that's ridiculous. Let's get back the Hall of Fame to like impact players. Again, people like Marshawn Lynch, maybe not quite the yards, but the impact is there. Kenny Easley, and get rid of Jerome Bettis and Art Monk types where they played like Jerome Bettis again, like we said, like 100 million carries, so he gets the yards. Or Art Monk, who ran like 900 9-yard digs. And so he has the numbers, but come on.
Yeah,
right. They were Hall of Fame players. Anyway, I'm out.
All right. Kenny Easley, he's going to make it in the Hall of Fame. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be a 45 hanging up in the rafters. The team, the owners, obviously it's a new ownership since he was there. They're going to make up. They're going to have a big celebration. It's going to be awesome. All right.
I'm looking forward to it.
Topic number 6. So this is Ross's topic, so we'll have him go last. Topic number 6, due to history, geography, scheduling, the Seahawks haven't had a long-term rival. Which was your favorite for any of those rivals that we did have? So, Zeb, I'll let you hit it off first.
This one's a no-brainer for me. The 49ers, in the couple of years where there was a real rivalry, that's my favorite. They, to this day, the 49ers fans up to that point tried to put us off as, oh, you guys don't matter. Basically, they tried to treat us like we treat the Rams and the Cardinals. But they hate us now. Like, I can't tell you how many, like, I live in Portland and there are probably as many Niners and Raiders fans as there are Seahawks fans. I mean, as of late, it's obviously shifted a little bit because people aren't ashamed to display their fandom of a Super Bowl winning team. But there's 49ers fans and Raiders fans. There's Bay Area fans. There's people from the Bay Area, people with family in the Bay Area. And I see posts on Facebook on a daily basis with somebody who hating the Seahawks. They hate us. And that to me is a result of our couple of years, our rivalry with the 49ers. When they were good, when they were one play away from back-to-back Super Bowls and we broke them, was one of the best feelings I've ever had. So yeah, hating the 49ers feel, I don't hate them right now because they're of no consequence, but
it's like hating a homeless puppy. I mean,
yeah, but they'll once that stupid front office gets their shit together, they'll get good again, and when they do, that hatred will be back. That's the team. I don't know why. I guess that's just the way it worked out, but maybe it's because their fans are all ignoramuses and pompous jerks. Maybe that's why. So yeah, that to me, it's the 49ers, no question.
Yeah. I think that's probably a lot of people can say that. What I'm going to say is I'm going to say the NFC West. The Cardinals, the Rams, the Niners, we've all had, in the time that we've moved to the NFC West, we've basically rotated through that division and say, all right, when we started, it was Jeff Garcia and Terrell Owens, and oh man, we're moving to division with the former world champion Rams, and the 49ers are going to be great. The Rams turned out to be a big rival in Holmgren's coming out years where, I remember it was my first season as a ticket holder where we lost to them 3 times in 1 year, twice at home. One of those was the playoff games where Bobby Ingram drops a really tough catch by Matt Hasselbeck on 4th and 7. Then you've got the move to the Niners in Russell Wilson's coming out year. We win the Super Bowl. We have the tip. And then the last few years, it's been the Cardinals. Bruce Arians, they're just these iconic matchups against these teams. And, in that span, it was always, okay, this team was a little bit better, and then Seahawks come out and beat them. And then their fans hate us, we hate them back, then they suck, and then we continue to stay good. So my vote for the best rivalry is just the fact that our division, Seahawks have been the most consistent, I would say, over the span we've been in the NFC West. But there's been that rotation of all of those teams running through, and there was a time where the Cardinals were the best, but for the most part, Seahawks have really had their hay as one of the top teams in the NFC West.
Yeah, totally.
All right, Ross, take us home.
I mean, I agree with Zeb. The 49ers one was hard to beat. It was almost tangible, right? The weekly back and forth on the internet and the epic contest and the tip. I mean, it was the first time I really felt like part of it because I could go to these games. I do have an honorable mention. In the 80s, it was with the Raiders, right? It was a bit of an odd one because we went through that rivalry, and I had no connection to the Bay Area. As a university student, I actually moved to the Bay Area, and I would talk to some of my classmates, whatever, about the rivalry of the Seahawks and the Raiders and how it was a shame it was over now. And they looked at me like I was insane. They were like, "No, that wasn't a rivalry, yo. Like, we didn't really think about you at all. The Chiefs are our rivals. Sometimes the Chargers. Like, you were, even when you guys were good, we never thought it was a rivalry." And it was so deflating and so humiliating. But now I kind of get it because now we have that almost the opposite. We're I almost felt the opposite earlier this year when Carolina fans were coming on our board and they got to the Super Bowl and everything, but they were now this is a rivalry, and I just felt no. I mean, yeah, you guys are good, but somehow mentally you guys just don't feel like a rival to me, no matter how often we play. Or even the Packers, where that was getting close to when we were playing them so often, but just there was something that just didn't feel like a rivalry. They seem to be reaching, especially the Packers, because they have nobody to be their rival because nobody good's around them.
Yeah,
but it's just so weird. It's so weird when you think somebody's your rival and they don't think so.
Yeah, it's a one-sided rivalry.
Yeah, hate has to go both ways for it to be a rivalry, and
a real rivalry, like
awkward.
Steelers Ravens a few years ago, and then what Seahawks 49ers was, which is probably if not as good, it was the next closest thing to the Steelers Ravens. Those real.
The Cardinals one should be now, but why isn't? Is it that they don't have a lack of a hardcore fan base, or is it? When you're in the Sun Belt, it's hard to be hardcore about anything, or why isn't it?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Cardinals, no one cares about. Like they just don't have a hardcore fan base that makes them
Yeah,
Right.
I guess that's
love
it.
them. Like Niner fans have, like when they were in St. Louis, the St. Louis, even though they've been terrible since for the past like decade, Cardinals fans are just like kind of like the most fair weather, just because probably they'd rather hang out in the sun.
I mean, they must have some diehards, but with a franchise that's moved the way theirs did, and then been so consistently inconsistent over the years, it's probably they probably don't have that strong base, that we eventually finally developed.
And to that point, Zeb, you know your franchise is in trouble when you actually get to star in a movie where your franchise is like the marquee team, like Jerry Maguire. You only get to be picked for that kind of movie when no one cares about your team. Kind of like when the Angels in the outfield picked like the Mariners to be like the opposing team they played in their game,
Right.
All right, final thoughts on the rivals?
I want to mention a little bit about what Ross was just talking about with the 80s, because I remember growing up in the Seattle area, in going to elementary school in the late 80s and the early 90s and middle school, and being what felt like the only Seahawks fan I knew, or me and one other guy. Shout out to my boy Peter, growing up. But other than that, like you wore a Seahawks hat to school and you get made fun of for it, or you wear my Largent jersey and maybe one guy would say something positive, but other than that, it was always, "Oh, Seahawks suck," and we're talking about people that live within like 30 miles of the stadium, So I grew up with there was always I had one friend who was a Chiefs fan and one friend who was a Raiders fan, and I think I ever had any real problems with the Chargers, but the Broncos. And so I always had those few friends that made it feel like a rivalry, because we'd be at school and we'd, talk mess to each other back and forth. But it was, we were the Seahawks. We didn't win a lot. So it was, maybe it was a rivalry to me. But yeah, again, like we were just talking about it, maybe it wasn't so much of an actual rivalry, but it was fun still for me as a kid. And probably a lot of people have the same experience.
Yeah, definitely. I remember for me, I wasn't a big football fan until I got a little bit older. And a lot of my friends, even though I lived in Seattle, they were all 49er fans because that's when Steve Young and Joe Montana kept winning Super Bowls. Right. And I always think, like, well, we've got a team in Seattle. Like, I have no clue about them, but why aren't you a fan of Seattle? And like, well, they suck. And I'm like, okay, fair enough.
Well, being a fan as a kid is a different experience anyway. I kind of miss it. I mean, it was a lot simpler.
Yeah. It's different.
As an adult, you have to have perspective and things like that. Like, as a kid, you can like mindlessly hate the Oakland Raiders. As an adult, you're like, well, actually, Oakland's not that bad of a play.
Like, I respect that.
Kind of like it.
I respect the fact that you can get stabbed in their stadium more so than the other ones. That's true fandom.
Yeah. All
right, so we're going to close it out. We have a couple of topics that people have written on Facebook, that have written on Seahawks.net. So we're going to talk about really quickly. So Matt Churchill asked, Thomas Rawls and Kristen Michael looks like they're to be decided. How many rookies and other guys do we potentially keep on the roster? I'm assuming he means running backs. We've kind of talked about Alex Collins. We've talked about Tremaine Pope. If you had to pick right now, which of those two makes the roster?
I'd go with Pope, to be honest. I mean, I want to see what happens tomorrow, but I want to see Pope.
Yeah, I'd like to see Collins be the guy that we want him to be, but Pope has just shown so much for it, more than him so far this preseason. And normally,
I wonder if we could.
You always see that guy in the preseason that's playing against the 3s and the 4s, and he shines, and you always think, man, this guy should make the team, and he never does. Well, last year it happened with Rawls. Yeah. So we're talking about Pete Carroll and John Schneider, so anything's possible.
Yeah. I don't think any of those guys actually make the team. I think that they already like CJ Procise, even though he's been injured all camp. I don't see Alex Collins in his current format. I think he could be like a Kristen Michael and comes back in a couple years, but I don't see him making the team this year. Tremaine Pope, kind of same thing. He flashed really awesome in game 2 of the preseason, but no one cares when you're doing that against third and fourth string guys.
Right.
All right. All right, so this is another question. This is from Brian Krasno off Facebook. Should we be worried about our long snapper? Ross, what do you think?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm absolutely shocked they didn't bring back. My mind is slipping. What's his name?
Gresham.
Clint Gresham.
Gresham. Like, I don't know why that wasn't like the first phone call made after the last game. I mean, like, you're saving $200,000 or something like that. It's a long snapper. If we don't get him back, we're gonna lose a game. I predict right now we will lose a game, maybe even 2 this year because of the long snapper. And that's like $200,000. Seriously.
Oh man.
I don't know how it's a question.
I don't. Why did we let him go in the first place? Like,
he cost too much money.
Seriously.
yeah, but what is that? What does that even mean? Like $200,000? Bullshit.
Well, I mean, that's the state of the salary cap, I guess. I mean, like, that's how up against it they feel because they want to have a little bit of cushion going to the regular season. But
yeah, because they're injuries and they got to sign other people like off the street, like at the end of the day. But yeah,
especially the Seahawks. By the end of the season, they'll have 3 guys who are stocking shelves today, starting on the offensive or tight end. So that's how.
I know how these guys work, Pete and John, and they'll stick by their guns for just long enough for us to get worried before if things don't work out, before they just bring Clint Gresham back, because they will. They won't. They're not afraid to.
Apparently, they have like a speed dial ready to go. So
yeah. So we'll see. I we'll hope for the best. Things haven't looked so great during preseason, but at least we know that Clint's still there. I guess we can't bring back Jean-Philippe Darche, right?
Oh man, I remember JP. He had that great game against the Rams where he squirted somehow like a loose fumble and he got like the game ball from Holmgren. That was a great game.
Jean-Philippe.
Yeah. I want to care about special teams. I want to care about the long snapper, but I don't, because it's special teams. The fact that we have Tyler Lockett, that was always my biggest concern on special teams. Long snappers are like the bastard redheaded stepchild of baseball closers, where they're going to find someone to do it and they'll keep looking and looking and looking until they think someone's going to stick.
Yeah.
If it's not this guy who I don't even know his name is, it's going to be Clint Gresham. It's going to be someone else. It's not a big deal. I'm not too worried about it.
Okay, well, I like your attitude.
Yeah, right. Just total blase here, like, what the fuck? All right, so we got another question from Mizzou Hawk Gal off Seahawks.net. She basically wants to know, should we be worried about the offensive line, and also should we, what's going on with the defensive scheme with Brandon Browner? Is that something that we are going to see? We saw it kind of affect us in the game against Minnesota. Quick thoughts on offensive line, you guys.
I don't know what's going on with Brandon Browner. It seems weird that they would bring him in and then not. I don't know, what are they just going to cut him without really kind of seeing what he can do in that role as a tight end tight end specialist, or playing in the box or whatever. I don't think Browner is not going to be a starting cornerback anymore. I just don't think he just doesn't have it anymore, right? He's playing more of like a backup safety role at this point.
Safety linebacker. He was going to be. It looked like they wanted him to basically come in to be sort of like the guard, the tight end specialist, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, but we haven't seen that yet, right? Like, they haven't really used him.
No, they were doing it in practice. The training camp sessions I went to, they did it every day in training camp, but they haven't done it in an exhibition game yet. So maybe they've either given up on it or they don't want to tip their hand.
Okay.
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I was at training camp with Ross, and we saw Brandon Browner line up in space, and he looks lost. I mean, he's the best at putting his hands on some guy, mugging him for 5 yards, and then sneaking away a couple defensive holdings and pass interferences and, like, getting away with it. It's a philosophy that if we pass interference so much, they can't call it every time.
Right.
And then if he does that against a tight end, that's great. I'm not concerned about it yet because we don't really know how he's going to be used. We don't even know if he's going to make the roster. So I think they have to come up with a plan to stop the tight end. If it's not Brandon Browner, it's going to be a mixture of Cam Chancellor or KJ Wright or someone. They
So
have to do something.
do you think they're asking too much of Browner to have him be more than just a man corner? Like have him like play a role where he has to, I don't know, do more? Is they're asking more of him mentally or as far as preparation goes? Like you're not just going to mug a guy anymore. Now you have to like really know what you're getting yourself into on any given play. Is that too much for him?
Ross, do you want to take this first?
I don't know if it's too much, but I mean, like, after so many, I mean, he's not a spring chicken anymore. After so many years of doing one thing, it may just take more time to catch on. I don't know. I mean, he's used to just, controlling that boundary area, and all of a sudden you're putting him in the middle of the field and giving him some responsibilities even in the zone. It maybe just takes some adjustment, but it all comes down to, like, we haven't seen him the first two preseason games. Is that a good sign or a bad sign? Maybe tomorrow we find out.
Yeah. I look at it this way. If you're not a starter, you have to play multiple spots. You have to play special teams. You have to cover multiple positions. You have to play both safety spots. You have to be able to play nickel and outside corner. You have to be play two spots on the linebacking core. You have to rotate on the defensive end. And that's just defensive guys. So if Brandon Browner cannot bring more than just being a tight end mugging guy, he's not going to make the team out of camp. John and Pete don't get guys for depth that can only do one specific thing. They need to be the multi-tool guy. If he doesn't make it out of camp, it means that it was a failed experiment. He can't do enough, and they're gonna bring in a guy like Eric Pinkin and Mike Morgan and all of these other linebackers and say, hey, you're fast, athletic enough. You don't have to be that Bruce Irvin, but you need to be able to cover a tight end, and that was a huge problem last year. I don't see if Brandon Browner could be that guy if he doesn't make it out of camp.
Okay.
All right, so this is the last topic for the day, but back to Mizzou Hawks question. Offensive line, are you guys worried, yes or no?
I'm not worried about the interior. I'm a bit worried about the tackles, and I'd say there's like a 50-50 chance that there's a tackle on our opening day roster that's not on the roster now. Either a pickup or a trade.
Okay. I'm not worried because I don't think that the offensive line could be any worse than it's been the last couple of seasons. And so far in the preseason, I've seen some pretty encouraging things from the young guys. So and we have Russell Wilson, and I think that's pretty much the most important factor in the entire scenario. And I think that's been kind of the mindset of Pete and John, is that as long as Russell's back there, we can experiment on the O-line and not sink a bunch of money into it and come out okay on the other end.
The pessimist in me wants to say that their Moneyball offensive line patchwork will catch up to them, but they're way smarter than I am, and they continue to prove me wrong. They turned a defensive lineman into a guy that got $20-30 million from another team. Paul McQuiston, Breno Giacomini, all of these guys got big-time money from other teams, and no one had heard of them before they came to the Seahawks. They're going to continue to prove me wrong. They have Justin Britt playing at center. He seemed to actually play pretty well. He was pretty strong at the point of attack.
Britt looks really good.
What was that?
Britt looks really, really good at center. I mean, I think like why haven't we been playing here the whole time? He looks really good.
Yeah. So I know everyone wants to worry about it. I mean, I think people are maybe a little bit concerned because Minnesota actually decided that they wanted to play non-preseason and actually try and blitz. Those were the second and third string guys. I'm not too worried about it. The sacks were on Russell Wilson. Tomorrow's going to be a huge game. We're going to see the starters for 2 quarters, plus, coming out of the halftime to kind of get them ready for the real season. That will be more telling, but until John and Pete prove me wrong, or prove me right, I should say, I have to believe that they know what they're doing. I remember all the offensive line coaches that we had before Tom Cable, and everyone said like, "Oh, this guy's a offensive line genius," and they all sucked. Tom Cable has done his magic. Pete Carroll, John Snyder, they continue to defy logic and get cheap offensive linemen that can be productive.
Yeah. I miss Breno. Man, I love me some Breno Giacomini.
The best Breno Giacomini story ever is that in my section where I see it in the Seahawks, anytime there's a holding call, there's a guy that says, "Damn you, Giacomini!"
That's awesome.
Yeah, so, I mean, that guy looked like a guy that wanted to start a fight every other time, and he probably did. That's probably what helps to be him successful, but there's these offensive linemen that are getting in Michael Bennett's face, you know? I think that's huge.
Yep. Absolutely.
Hey, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Hey, shout out to Throwdown.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up here. On behalf of Zeb and Vetamur, Ross Vetamur, and myself. Any closing thoughts?
No.
None. All right, cool. So thank you for everyone that's listening right now. We're gonna put this on a SoundCloud, on a YouTube, so you can review it later on. Hopefully you enjoy it. Check out our Facebook page, right on our thread on .net. Keep comments. Tell us what we need to do better. If we're that Breno Giacomini and you're going to curse us, continually, then we're doing something right.
Yes, go to
all the Lynch fans.
Yeah,
I think you're okay.
If you're upset with Lynch fans, everyone fly to Tokyo. Find this guy. Actually lynch him. You'll probably meet Marshawn Summer on the way because currently he's in Australia with the Cal Scout team. So, you'll find something.
Go to triplebpodcast.com if you get a chance.
Yes, Zeb's got a podcast. It's hilarious. His friends are crazy. Zeb is normal. You should definitely check it out. Come to .net. Chat with us about football. Football is here. It's awesome. Everyone should be thankful that we have football.
Yeah,
back.
Shout out to Mark, and Neil over there at Seahawks.net too. Appreciate
yes,
you guys.
thank you to Rockhawk, Mark, for letting us put this on the site. We're going to let the music play for a little bit, and we'll catch you guys later.
Thanks, guys.
Peace out.